Well, this afternoon, Maxam, the company responsible for the transfer of explosives that detonated at Appiatse in the western region, has accepted fines imposed by government but denies any wrongdoing. Maxam was fined $1 million and another $5 million in other damages. This afternoon, we have the experts to analyze the fallout from the Appiatse investigations, plus an update on how the community is coping weeks after the disaster. Joining us now is safety expert Nanayawa Kwada, who is with the Bureau of Public Safety, and we can also speak to him on the fine that government is imposing on this company. We also have Dr. Tony Obin, who is a former managing director of the commission in charge of minerals. But before we interact with both of them, there's a need for us to tell you about what the latest is in the Appiatse community. My colleague Israel Lai has been talking to some of the residents days after the blast. But first of all, let's bring you the statement which is coming through from the Natural Resources Ministry, imposing and announcing that decision to impose the fine on Maxam company. You have that on your screens shortly, explaining why government is deciding to take this decision. But shortly after, we know that Maxam has also issued a statement indicating their position on the matter. Meanwhile, Robert Jemfi of FGR Bogosu Prestia Limited was one of the first people who got to the scene after the explosion at Appiatse. In this interview with Israel Lai, he talked about the interaction with the police escort who was part of the team transporting the explosives and the chaos at the scene when they arrived.
The explosion that claimed a number of lives, we're back at the scene and exactly to where you can call ground zero to see what has happened since. As you can see on the road, the crater, or where the crater was left, has been filled, and what we have in its place is that the road has been redone. So we've seen the first laying of bitumen, or first layer of bitumen, which will subsequently be run over again, so then we get a better layer and a smoother one that the vehicles can ride over. But when this happened, one of the first responders to get to the scene was FGR Bogosu Prestia Limited, a mining firm. And I have one of the men who first got to the scene to speak with us, to tell us exactly what happened. So, please tell us, how did you get to hear of the blast?
Yeah, thank you. On 20th of January, I received a call from one of our stakeholder radio stations, Best FM. And the person who called, his Daiwo Kwash, but we call him Big Kwash. So he called, he was calling and calling, it was around getting towards midday. So when I picked, because I was in the middle of a meeting, he said, so Jemfi, we need the help of the company because there's a vehicle burning in the middle of the road at Appiatse. No one can come and no one can go. That was all. I wanted better clarification, but he said that is the information he has and it has traveled to his station. So we should do whatever we can do. So immediately I called our safety and well-being manager and told him that he should deploy our fire tender and also a rescue team. So a third team member, a rescue emergency response team, and our fire tender with its crew were dispatched here. And then we also brought a rescue van should there be any need for saving lives. So we arrived here at the call of emergency call from BSFM. When the emergency team arrived here, what they saw, the blast had already gone. So what they saw was screaming all over, and people were crying and crying for people to save them under debris. Limbs were chopped off and all that, so they quickly had to start.
So at the time that you were called to come in, what you knew was that there was a fire.
There was a
But by the time
on fire in the middle of the road, and the two-way traffic has ceased. And this is a very busy road, so I understood what it could mean, but not with. So what we did was to deploy, based on that, deploy enough. Because if a vehicle is on fire, has there been a collision? Has there been what? Because we couldn't get all the details.
Right.
So based on our understanding, we said, okay, let's deploy all. Our fire tender, our rescue team, and our
But so
rescue
between
bus.
the time you mobilized to get to the scene, the explosion had happened.
That happened.
So you came in, you saw the people lying around, people crying.
Confusion, yeah. But we saw limbs chopped off and all that. So, and people were crying under debris in the community, the actual nucleus of Appiatse.
And by the way, this is the actual nucleus of Appiatse, which has now been leveled because they're clearing is essentially the ground so that they can rebuild the community as we have it. So yes, where exactly was the epicenter?
The epicenter was just where I'm walking towards. More in here, but had generated enough debris.
What do you understand to have caused the accident, or to have caused the incident for the explosion to follow?
Several narratives, by listening to it, it's and trying to piece it together. There was a case of a tricycle, commercialized tricycle that they call Appiatse, and it also involved a real motorbike, the normal that we knew before the advent of Aboboya and then the explosive carrying vehicle. The explosive carrying vehicle was going this direction, and according to the narrations, that all the motorbikes were going in this direction, going to August, but the explosive truck was going towards Oseko. Okay, now this is the narration. The tricycle was coming out of the side road leading out of Appiatse. There's a side road that joins at an acute angle. And according to the narration, it's at that point that the way and manner that side, that Pragra entered the road, he suffered they believe that he suffered a careless drive from, the motorbike suffered a careless drive from the Pragra that was joining the main street. That is not confirmed. That this is the narration. We're not here. And in order not to collide into it, the motorbike rider tried to save the situation, but with a speed that was not easy to control, fell while they were still in motion. And I think the narration suggests that the rider lost hold of the bike. So the bike was sliding with the speed with which it was coming and sparking fire. And according to the narrations, the two riders on that motorbike fell in a manner that the approaching explosive vehicle could have run over them. So in trying to avoid them, went a bit towards the right-hand side, and in the process, the bike that was in the sliding mode ran under it with sparks of fire. That is the narration. It's not confirmed, and it's difficult to confirm until investigations tie them all up together. But that is the story.
Right. So subsequently, we're learning that It actually dragged the motorbike for a while.
Yes, because the vehicle was already in motion, remember? And the various narration is that the driver of that explosive truck tried to aim to go out of the population area.
All right.
And all these are all, I would say, speculative, but that's the story. That when he got to port, where eventually the explosion happened, they suspect that he might have realized that the filling station would have made the worst case of the very risk he was aiming to.
Okay, so we see a gold filling station out there. So
these are the narration.
He was essentially trying to move out of
initially they said if you look at
the midst of the population.
But then they
when he noticed
because he saw that no, the danger ahead
was worse.
If he goes further.
Was worse.
So he got out and then tried to use it. Got out and then tried to use it. Got out and then tried to use it. The fire extinguisher and all that. At some point they observed that after he tried and he could not control the situation, he started warning people to run. And then he started going to the community, everybody should run. But at some point, he himself realized that he was not getting people to cooperate, so he himself ran further away. So no wonder he did not die.
There's talk of whether the vehicle carrying the explosives had an escort, and there's talk of whether the escort was ahead of it, or the police escort was on board the vehicle. What do you know?
As far as I know, like I said, I was not here on the incident, but when we came in response to the call for help, and then the information we got from our first advance team, the rescue team, that it's a terrible incident and lives have been lost and all that, I came in. When I came, unfortunately, I did not take a picture, but a police officer was shown to me and my colleagues that this police officer was the escort on board. I even thanked God for his life, and I'm telling him that if he doesn't know God, this should be enough for him to live for God. Even though I cautioned him that it's not to say those who died or got injured don't have God, but he should make it a point. So, but I wanted to take a picture with him, but that day if you were here, the demand on FGR and the other government agencies that later joined our team was too much. So I got distracted. But the investigation team should establish, but this is what I know.
Right. Now, we also know of the level of destruction of the explosion. You at FGR, as a miner, you were aware of explosives and the impact of explosives. Can you tell us a bit about how all this played out, and for us to appreciate the impact of the explosion?
When it comes to explosives, the 10 that they were carrying, nobody don't use that much. We order our explosives, we keep them and use them in smaller quantities. So the established or the narratives that we've received concerning this incident, that there was as much as 10 of explosive for it all to go off in a particular area. Ammonia, sorry.
Well, so what you have there is another account on the Appiatse explosion, but it's now time for us to have a conversation on this. Joining us now is Dr. Tony Obeng, who is the former CEO of the Ghana Minerals Commission, and also Nana Yao Akwada, who is a safety expert with the Bureau of Public Safety. But first off, we want to put on your screens now a breakdown of the announcement that we're receiving from the Land Ministry on the fine imposed on Maxam. So here you have it, $6 million in all. That's the total amount of the fine, but there's a breakdown. The first $1 million will be imposed immediately, which means that Maxam would have to cough up that amount of money immediately. The other $5 million remaining is for other damages that occurred at the scene, where we just brought you some recent accounts as well. So that's the breakdown for you. The first $1 million for regulatory breaches, which is being imposed on Maxam, and then the other $5 million components will be spread over an 18-month period, but it's also for other damages that we're seeing at the scene right now. But let's bring in our experts now to understand what's happening and the latest directives that we are hearing of. But we also do know that Maxam as well has been reacting to the directives from the Lands Ministry. There's also a need for us to get more details of the conditions that the Lands Ministry is now giving to Maxam as the conditions precedent for which it will allow Maxam to have that permit again to carry, develop or supply explosives. Remember, this company that is at the center of all these controversy has been a company that has been supplying and manufacturing explosives. So government is directing that as condition precedent, all trucks used by the company in carting the explosives shall have a red flashing light, clearly visible at least 100 meters away. And then they would need a siren, they would need some automatic operating bells, and they would also need a fire suppression system alongside the fire extinguishers that they would require on the track. These are the conditions that government is also giving. I want to take you to point 8, which is very critical because there were concerns about whether or not there was an escort. Government is giving another condition precedent to Maxam to ensure that they have escorts at all times. So you have this an extension of point 4, and you have point 4D there, indicating that they also need to install a tracking system to monitor the speed and movement of the explosive track, the set track that is controlling the explosives. And then it goes on and on, talks about the need for some monitors on the explosives itself. But let's move you to some of the condition precedents that government is also giving this afternoon to Maxam before it brings back its permit. At point 5, it is indicating that before each explosive track takes off from the operational sites of the company, the waybill for the transportation shall be endorsed by an inspector of mines. Mind you, that is in line with the regulation 15.2 of the LI 2177, which regulates mining activities and also explosives here in Ghana. So that is being stressed at point 5, which is contained in the statement that has been released by the Sector Minister Samuel Abu-Jinapor a couple of hours ago. Also at point 6, and mind you, these are all conditions precedent. It means that if Maxam cannot comply to all of these directives, then Maxam will not be allowed to continue to manufacture, supply explosives as they used to. So at point 6, you have one of the conditions that they are giving to Maxam now. Maxam would have all tracks transporting explosives. They must be accompanied by escort vehicles, which shall be inspected by an inspector of mines, and the detailed records of that inspector also captured in the book. So these are the conditions that government is giving to Maxam to fulfill before it gives the license operating permit back to Maxam. Maxam, remember, is that company that manufactures and supplies explosives to a lot of the mining companies. Let's get the reaction of Nana Akwada, who's on with us via Zoom. Nana, so I'm sure that by now you've heard the directives coming through from the Sector Minister, the Honourable Samuel Abu-Jinapor, indicating why, first of all, government is taking this decision. He says it's based on 2 reports, first from the regulator, the Minerals Commission itself, and then the 3-member committee that was set up. After a careful assessment of the report, they are imposing this cumulative fine of $6 million. Is that too much for Maxam to take at this point? Nana, Nana, it appears that we're having difficulties hearing you. If you could just unmute for it so we can get the point you're making. But yes, right, that's better.
Thank you. Let me first of all say good afternoon to your viewers. I think that to a large extent, $6 million is no sum that will take care of a mining company. But considering our circumstances and the circumstances of the village that was at the receiving end of this disaster, it might go a long way to resettle the people and to possibly, if distribution is done or administration of this money is done effectively, it will put a lot of people in that village on their feet or back to their livelihood. So $6 million for us, we cannot determine whether it's fair or appropriate, but to the extent that it will be able to resettle the community, we'll be fine with it.
With regard to issues surrounding public safety, the first view, first of all, and give me your reactions if I'm wrong, the first view from you experts is that there should be clarity and transparency on the part of government into the accounts and the findings that were made by the committee that was set up to look into the case. What's your reaction to that, knowing that the minister is only communicating at this point the punitive measures and not necessarily making public the details of the two reports he's received?
I think that's a minus for the ministry. It's a very huge minus because when such incidents occur, the public generally is not only interested in the punitive measures that you'll be applying to people or actors, in the game, but also they want to find out whether, as a country, we've been able to get to the bottom, the root cause of the incident. It is our only assurance that the incident will not recur, to the extent that even Maxam itself has come out to say that they are not privy to the findings against them, and that they are even contesting that breaches that have been identified in the investigation so far, they do not see a linkage between the incident and the breaches, means that the investigation probably has not been thorough enough. And the fact that we are going ahead to set up another committee to review a legislation that may not or have not been, we have not identified whether that legislation is adequate enough to run the industry after many years that it has been passed. I think that something is gone wrong somewhere, and it will be very important that ministry, the minister, Honorable Dinapo, reconsiders or relooks at some of the steps that he's taking in this regard.
I'm glad that you're talking about the embattled company itself, Maxam. They've released a statement just after the announcement by the Lands Ministry indicating their concerns and what it is that they have to say about the imposition of the fine. We don't have all of the time to read the entire statement, but the summary of the concerns they are raising is that it appears that there was a subcontractor involved in all of this, which they refer to as the ones transporting this very explosive. And they refer to that company in the statement, which you have on your screens now, indicating that there was a third party that was involved in the transportation of the explosive itself, which is the Agatham Limited, which they refer to as the logistics provider. So it appears that there's a third party involved in all of this. Maxam says we'll go ahead and comply with the directives, except to say that we need to give a true account of what's happening. Is that questioning any further how thorough this investigative process has been?
Well, absolutely. Reading the language of the presser by Maxam, that's exactly what they've done. They've said that, hey, we have not violated any of your provisions. We have not breached any of the legislation. But in order for our business to continue, we will pay whatever fine you slap at us. So it is up to the ministry now to, tell the Ghanaian people where those breaches occur, who breached what. And then once we are satisfied that we know what breaches or what sort of non-compliance led to this incident, we are tackling the issue. Otherwise, we'll go to bed. Maxam could pay $10 million, $20 million today, and the next day it will be another community. So it is absolutely important that the ministry, with oversight responsibilities over the Minerals Commission, gets the investigating body to get to the bottom of the breaches that actually led to this incident.
But Nana, is this, and I'm sorry to come in at this point, is this a favorable time for us to release the report, particularly when we know that there are two streams of investigations that are being carried out right now, one by the sector ministry, and then we also have the Ghana Police Service carrying out its investigations. There are concerns about prejudice and also putting out some information that may disturb or affect the quality of investigations that the Ghana Police Service is carrying out. So when is it appropriate, in your view, in your estimation, that we make all of these findings public?
Well, as far as we have similar companies, doing the same job, transporting explosives, it's absolutely important that the two institutions either team up to conduct this investigation, or whoever finishes his report puts it out so that industry players will learn, civil society will learn, and then we will get this thing not to recur. But if they have decided that the police, after many, many days, I'm surprised why the police report is not even out. I did not know the police were also doing their own investigation, because normally when such incidents occur, the process through which they go to establish acts of terrorism or acts of criminality is a very quick process. But many days on, we are told the police is investigating. That's fine. But if the Minerals Commission are done with their investigation report, if the other committee that was also set up by the ministry, the 3-member committee, if they are also done with their report, the public needs to know so that we can name the perpetrator, we can point to the violations, and then we would expect that moving on, the ministry can now see to it that it is addressed. The areas that led to the incident occurring are adequately addressed, because I, for one, I can't sleep if I know that people are moving ammonium nitrate in this country and they are not under any supervision. I cannot sleep if I know that people are moving high capacity explosives in this country and there are portions of regulations that they are literally, violating and nobody is saying anything. I cannot sleep if I know that our law has been promulgated to govern the movement of high capacity explosives and such substances is lacking certain provisions which is leading to such incidents. So that is why we have said that whatever report that the ministry have taken receipt of, they should make it public.
Nana, there are concerns now about public safety even within the Appiatse community itself. We'll talk about that shortly. But from all that you're saying now, what's your suspicion really, that government cannot be trusted?
No, those are your words. But trust me, I have never been confident in the way government deals with such incidents, such occurrences which bring so much misery, sometimes bringing the whole nation to a standstill on its feet, on its knees, how they've dealt with the report. There is no
bicycle crossed the vehicle
available at the expense of the taxpayer. 2 reports are available at the expense of the taxpayer for someone to think that he is wiser than all and that there are details in there that we, the public, the taxpayer, does not deserve to know. So they will keep it to themselves and give us, aspects that they think it's okay for us to consume. In the first place, as we sit here today, none of us know what actually led to the accident. And the company that all of us were looking up to, that they violated aspects of the Ghanaian law, which led to the perishing of 13 lives and a whole community raised down. The company says that, hey, we did not do anything that breached any of your law. And that we are paying this money because the big boys says we have to pay, otherwise we cannot work. We need to know what caused this accident. We need to know who did not do his work. We need to know who did his job and did it badly. That led to the 13 lives getting lost. I think that, yes, there may be 2 reports out there and a third one coming, but they have not answered the critical questions that they need to answer to the Ghanaian people.
Now let's not lose sight over the fact that this borders on the safety of the public as well, particularly those within the Appiatse community. Government has announced its plan of how it intends to deal with this matter. There's a committee that has just been set up for the purposes of reconstructing the facilities there within the community. I'm sure that you've been doing your independent checks. Is this the right time and the right spot for us to reconstruct and resettle these people? You're taking them out of their space for some time, reconstructing at the same location and bringing them back to where they used to live. Is that the best approach, having in mind all of the checks that you've done at the Bureau of Public Safety?
Now, my brother, when disasters strike, you must be swift at resettling the people. And I believe if you and I were community members or residents of Appiatse, we would want to be settled yesterday. And so the time to resettle these people and get them back on their lives was many, many days ago. I think it should be done and should be done quickly. The most important aspect, however, is that if I live in Appiatse, I want to be sure that when even government builds a house for me to go sleep in, I'm certain that what led to that incident occurring, government has taken full grip of it and control of it.
I'm grateful. Nanaya Akwada is a safety expert with the Bureau of Public Safety, sharing his thoughts with us here. Now, a driver's mate has been confirmed dead after an articulated truck loaded with bags of rice ran into another truck loaded with cement on the Kumasi-Accra road. Wahid Tairu, 25, died on the spot as the driver of the rice-loaded truck, identified as Musa Martin, who is in a critical condition, receiving treatment at the Ejisu Government Hospital. The impact of the crash was so heavy that it completely shattered the trailer head, and the engines were forced to dislodge from the vehicle. My colleague Ohimin Tewia, who was at the scene, reports that the accident has brought an unbearable impact on the travelling public as the Kumasi-Ejisu stretch has been blocked as we speak. There's more in the following report.
The impact of the crash was so heavy, the trailer head was completely shattered and the engine was forced to dislodge from the vehicle with registration GR 2550E. The articulated truck, carrying several bags of rice from the Accra-Kumasi direction, crashed into the rear of the one loaded with cement ahead of him. The driver's mate of the truck, loaded with rice, identified as Wahid Tahiru, age 25, died on the spot. The Ejisu-Kumasi stretch was blocked to traffic for several hours as personnel from the Ejisu Divisional Police Motor, Traffic and Transport Department worked tirelessly to ensure flow of traffic. ASP Francis Mreku is the Ejisu MTTD commander.
The accident occurred at exactly 5 a.m. involving two vehicles moving towards Kumasi direction. Articulated truck loaded with rice and then another articulated truck loaded with cement. But the cement truck was in front. So when they go to this very stretch, the cement truck wanted to negotiate to the other side to offload some of the cement. Per the information I have, the driver mate came down to stop oncoming vehicles, not knowing there was another truck which was carrying the rice, speeding. And then all of a sudden, hit the rear portion of the cement truck. The driver to the rice vehicle got injured and is currently at Ejisu Government Hospital. The driver mate died at the spot.
Some members of the traveling public were not spared as they bore the brunt as they are forced to trek several miles due to heavy vehicular traffic. This man here, Augustine Boache, was left frustrated. Preliminary police investigations revealed the driver of the truck was speeding at a spot police say is accident prone.
This road is asphalted and at the same time a highway. So normally the drivers take advantage of that and overspeed. So somewhere last year I wrote to the highway authority to construct a ramble hump here to slow the drivers to the desired speed. But as I speak, I've not seen anything. And you know, this place too is accident-prone zone. So I think that's the only thing which can help to slow the drivers to the desired speed. Immediately the accident occurred, I deployed my men at all the intersections. As you can see, they are still directing traffic. I also called for towing car from Oforikrum. Unfortunately, when it was coming, it got spoiled on the way. So I had to call another towing truck from Swame. So it has towed the car away and there is free traffic. Still, the personnel will be here directing traffic to ensure that there is a free flow of traffic before they leave the scene.
For Joy News, Parliamentary.
Well, let's get the latest on the situation. Ohiming Tevia is joining us now via Zoom. So tell us about the situation on the Jisu stretch as we speak. How much of a traffic situation is still being reported from there?
For now, the road, that is the Kumasi-Accra stretch, has been open to traffic. Motorists and commuters alike are going about their normal business, unlike in the morning where they were faced with heavy vehicular traffic after the accident forced a closure of one of the dual carriage lanes, especially from Ejisu to Kumasi stretch. But thanks to the swift, attention given by the police MTTD, which brought in this recovery truck to move the accident vehicles away from the scene, it has given some reprieve to commuters who ply the road. And then effort also been made to clear the debris from the accident scene. So even if when you get there at this moment, you are unlikely to see anything indicating there was an accident at the scene of the accident. So I would say yes, with the presence of the police MTTD, a lot has been done, and now there's relief to motorists and commuters alike.
So what more arrangements, I mean, from the Ghana Police Service and other security agencies, what more are we hearing from them in terms of the arrangement to ensure that there's free flow of traffic on that stretch?
I must say, speaking to the Ejisu MTTD commander, ASP Francis Emriku, he did indicate that the spot where the accident occurred is actually accident prone, and there are schools nearby. For some time now, they have been complaining about the fact that something needs to be done, especially in the area of provision or construction of speed humps to protect lives, especially students who have to cross that stretch to the other end in order not to be harmed by these speeding motorists. But according to the police MTTD, several appeals, including letters to the Ghana Highway Authority, have fallen on deaf ears to the extent that the school authorities at a point were even, some school authorities in some of the schools around were planning to hit the streets because they say for some time now, the area has been recording some knockdowns. And if you look at that particular stretch, it's like you're moving on a hilly area and then you decide to descend. So it gives some sort of relief to drivers and give them the opportunity to speed. And that is why police preliminary investigation suggests that the driver of the truck carrying rice from the Accra direction to Kumasi, identified as Muta Martin, was speeding. And he's not the only person that police says has been speeding on that stretch. So henceforth, they are appealing to the National Highway Authority to construct speed ramps on that stretch to save lives and also protect property.
Ohiming Teria, thanks for giving us the latest update from the Ejisu stretch where you've been covering that accident that we've witnessed. But we can now take you to Parliament now. Chairperson of the Public Accounts Committee, James Kluche-Aveji, has been asking Interpol to issue a red alert for the arrest of a former teacher of the Pantine Nursing and Midwifery School here in Accra. The said teacher, Madam Efia Nyakwa, is said to have been on study leave whilst drawing salaries from the state. She failed to return after the education authorities who appeared before the committee explained that it has been difficult getting Madam Efia Nyakwa to refund the monies to the state. Here is the chairperson of the Public Accounts Committee, James Kluche-Aveji.
Now, she had received on earned salary about 60,000 and she paid 10,000. Difference of, it's like they say 59,000, which means that even what, yeah, getting to 70,000. So now, madam, you have to contact the director of Interpol, provide the necessary information about her. I'm sure you know where she's living now, so that they can track her. If any relative, what's the name of the lady?
Efia Nyakwa.
Efia Nyakwa. And who was a teacher? Was she a teacher?
Yes, please.
Who was a teacher at Nursing and Midwifery Training College, Pantan, who left and earned over close to 70,000 Ghana cedis salary that she knew that she wasn't entitled, yet she received the money. We are getting the director of Interpol to track her and get her so that government can retrieve the money.
Thank you.
If any relative of her is listening to her, to us, then they should make the effort and contact the school immediately and make the appropriate arrangement and pay the money. That is a directive of the committee.
Yes, please.
And Clark, take note of that.
Well, that's James Kluche-Aveji. Let's take you to Parliament now. Kwesi Parker-Wilson joins us for more on this. Parker, so first of all, tell us, what was the agreement between the institution and Nyakwa, who's been sent abroad to study?
We are learning was that while she's in school, she still would be paid. And when she's done with her master's program, she will return to the school and continue with teaching. And so that was the expectation of the school. But over a year now, since she finished her education, she has failed to return. And interestingly, they are still paying her, and she's still drawing the salary from the state. And that is something that the committee were unhappy about, that in spite of the woman's failure to return, somebody should have written a letter to the Controller and Accountant General Department to block the salary. But as she speaks, she continues to draw salary for some time now, and that is really a challenge to the committee. So that has been a concern. But of course, the authorities indicated to the committee that they will ensure that the day the Interpol issue the red alert, so that they can track Madam Efia Nyakwa, who has gone AWOL. I mean, she's nowhere to be found. So they can track her and retrieve the money for the state.
Well, Parker, we know that the chairperson of the Public Accounts Committee, James Kluche-Aveji, is upset over what he describes as the health minister's continuous disregard for the committee. We'll come to you to hear his reasons, but first I want us to take a listen to the chairperson of the committee and we'll get more explanations from you on this.
You need to come and speak to the responses that you submit to the committee. That is one. Secondly, the committee is not happy about the attitude of the Minister for Health. Convey this to him, that the committee is not happy about his attitude. Since this committee started work, not this committee, the previous committee started work in 2017 to 2020. And this committee started from 2021 to this year. He appeared before this committee only once. He was the chairman, the former chairman of this committee. He was the one who had been inviting people, and when people don't come, he did not take it lightly. Now he himself is doing exactly what he was against. So we are going to report on that to the plenary. So clerk, take note that the Minister of Health doesn't respect this committee. You have a ministry who has a minister and 2 deputies, and none of them will appear before the committee. You have spent public money, come and account for it. Your name appeared in the report of the Auditor General, which means that there's something wrong. Come and tell us how you will resolve the issue. You don't respect the committee, they invite you, you do other things. It's not nice. So we are going to report on that to the plenary, for plenary to take decision. So convey this to him. We're not doing this job for fans. We have the backing of the Constitution. We have the backing of the standing orders of Parliament. We report our work to the House for the House to take decision. So please, we're not happy about that.
Well, Parker Wilson is still on the telephone lines with us. Parker, interestingly, the Health Minister once chaired this very committee that we are talking about.
Chairman of the Public Accounts Committee. And for viewers or those who've been following the Public Accounts Committee, they do specifically with the Auditor General report. And so they were expecting that as the former chairman of the committee, he would submit himself to the processes, so that with all the infractions cited in the Auditor General's report for the year 2018, he would make himself available to answer some of the questions. Because today, the Health Ministry was programmed for conversations today on the report. And as the minister, you have to be there to assist heads of the agencies and departments to answer the various questions that the committee has for them, including all the infractions that have been cited in the Auditor General report. And we're talking about the 2018 report, the issues about Pantai, the issues about Kwalebu, the issues about safety, nursing and training. And the Health Minister, they wanted to show up. And that is a source of worry for the committee, indicating that it has become his conduct, it's become his behavior to disrespect the committee members. And so for that reason, the committee is going to report the conduct of the Health Minister to the plenary. And so when he's called before the plenary, then he answers questions on why continuously he disregards the invitation by the Public Accounts Committee. So we are yet to get to know when the Health Minister will be called before the plenary for him to come and answer those questions. But as I speak, neither the Health Minister nor his 2 deputies are at the Public Accounts Committee.
We'll keep our eyes on that. Parker Wilson there, live from Parliament. Remember that you're still live with us here on The Pulse. But
Blessed, before I go, in a closely related development, the ranking member on the Health Committee, Kobna Akando, has been addressing the media a short while ago. He's raising concerns about the covered expenditure. You recall that last week we had an extensive conversation with the country director of World Bank, and he disclosed to us that about $560 million were giving us financial support to the government to fight COVID-19. Out of that, $160 million was used for the procurement of vaccines, while the $430 million was used to educate and sensitize people on the pandemic. Well, Akanda says that the $130 million has been accounted for in the 2021 budget. However, the $430 million hasn't been accounted for. So he's asking the minister to make available details of that expenses and also impressing upon the House to constitute a bipartisan committee to investigate expenditure on COVID. So this is a story we'll be following. I'm sure I'll be getting some reaction from the majority side on the Health Committee to understand what really is happening with the COVID expenses. But he is clear in his mind that government may have supplied the financial support received from the Bank of Ghana to...
well, Paka, I thought that...
the COVID-19 pandemic.
Well, Paka, I thought that would have been the last, but let me just do one more. It appears that the road minister as well, there are some issues happening in Parliament regarding that. What more can you tell us, Paka?
Well, that's correct. You recall that yesterday, I mean, social media was awash with a comment from the roads minister that the abandoned toll booths will be converted into urinals, washrooms. I mean, Ghanaians have been talking about it on social media. Today, on the floor of the House, the matter came before the House. In fact, the House was considering a commercial agreement between the Bank of Government and a company to build a bridge over the Afram River. And the ranking member on the committee, Kwame Abuja, when he was contributing to the conversation, indicated that government is going to borrow 200 million euros for the construction of that bridge. And he doesn't understand why we've abandoned the toll booth. You could have made some money out of the toll booth and assist or support government with this project. And he's hearing the minister saying he's going to convert them into urinals. In fact, the minister was super upset with the conduct, indicating that he's been misreported. He never said that, and that the ranking member that is coming Abuja is being ignorant about what he's talking about. That really brought the House into some kind of disagreement where the minority chief whip, Muntaka Mubarak, raised objection that you cannot use words like ignorant in the plenary. And so the first deputy speaker, who is presiding over sittings, was forced to compel the roads minister to withdraw. So he withdrew and apologized, but insisted that he never said anything about converting the abandoned toll booth into urinals. He's still in the chamber. In fact, I am seeking to get some conversation with him to really understand what happened between him and the National Road Safety Commission when he met, because there are audios and videos to the fact that the minister had made the comment, but he is claiming that he didn't say that. So that was a disagreement on the floor of the House earlier today. And I must add that Parliament has been lamenting about the continuous road carnages or road accidents in the country. Yesterday, we understand that there was some accident in Sawam, which claimed about 5 lives.
Right.
The MP for the area, Frank Anodompre, read a statement on that, and almost all the members of the House who contributed to the statement were upset about the level at which roads are claiming lives in this country. They are asking the government to do something about it, and also persuading or admonishing drivers to comply with the Road Act and the road regulation so that we can save lives and ensure that Ghanaians continue to live longer and the government and work for the government in order to generate revenue.
I can imagine all that's happening in Parliament now with regard to that latest announcement by the Roads Minister. But Paka, we want to thank you at this point. We'll get more details from you in our subsequent bulletins. Don't forget that's still to come. Today we're marking the Safer Internet Day. But how safe are you on the internet? Remember that this is The Pulse. We'll return shortly. And you're welcome back to the polls. Now, experts are predicting a grimmer outlook for Ghana's economy should the Proper Sexual Rights and Ghanaian Family Values Bill be passed by Parliament. The controversial bill is seeking to criminalize the activities of homosexuals and ban any form of advocacy. It has been greeted by rigorous debates with public opinions split on the matter. Parliament's Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee suspended consideration of the memoranda in 2021. But even before the committee resumes its public hearing, a study has been conducted by CDD Ghana, which has found that the passage of the bill will throw the government's economic agenda out of gear. Here's the Executive Director of ISODEC, Bernard Anaba, presenting the findings of the study at the CDD Roundtable.
Ghana is a signatory to a number of United Nations human rights conventions. And we know that a lot of our external or UN-based partners are against the passage of this bill. And if we are going against the UN order of human rights, of which significant provisions of this bill contradicts, even in our constitution, then it is going to bring about diplomatic tension in terms of between the officials of Ghana and the UN officials. And that will have a cost on Ghana because our leaders always have to engage with external partners, whether in economic or in political reasons, and that will have an indirect cost. For instance, if they decide not to honor the aid that or grants that they usually support through our budget, or delay such grants just because they think our environment of human rights is not conducive, then that will be an impact on us. In terms of the direct cost, this is going to affect individuals directly. It is going to affect the institutions that will have to administer this law. We know SHRAJ is a key institution. We know the judiciary will need people well-versed in this bill if it passes into law. Then we know the police will have to have the expertise to be able to deal with persons. And we know communities will have to be vigilantes. So this direct involvement of all these stakeholders will portend some cost at their own levels or even at the levels of the state. And persons who will be either jailed or imprisoned as a result of being labeled as gay persons or contravenes the bill, they will suffer the cost both socially or economically. If you're in prison, then you may have to lose your job. Even in terms of stigmatization.
Now, an old building housing children of the State Experimental Basic School in Kumasi is in danger of collapse as 3 of its pillars have started falling apart. The primary school building, built in the 1950s, has seen no major renovation, and parts of the pillars have started falling off, revealing metal rods in them. The legendary school, which has churned out notable personalities, has a makeshift classroom which is exposed to the elements of the weather, making teaching and learning very difficult. Here's Erastus Asari Donko with more in this report.
State Experimental Basic School, established in the 1950s, now has a population of over 1,000 students. This 2-story building, built at the inception of the school, has developed defects. A cursory look reveals an imminent danger of collapse. 3 of the main supporting pillars are falling apart, revealing the metal skeleton parts. The teachers are worried.
The building has been there for a long time and no renovation has been done on it, so the concrete is removing by itself, so we're even afraid.
Glaring cracks and almost loose concrete openings are seen in other parts of the building, indicating a weakened structure.
This building is old, and cracks like the one you're seeing now are developing across many of the classrooms on this block. And this crack represents a danger that is developing and creating a sense of fear amongst the teachers here. These cracks can be found in the buildings, as you can see here, and down in the classrooms below. And it needs urgent fixing. Inside the classrooms, the deputy head of Basic 1 section of the State Experimental School, George Amwa, shows me cracks in the concrete ceiling.
Looking at this place, normally we do cleaning once every month where children mop their classrooms. So in the case of doing it, you see that the water will be soaking down to this classroom. There's a danger. We've not seen it yet, but a time is coming. If measures are not taken, it's going to be a problem.
School is forced to close when it rains due to these windowless classrooms exposed to the weather.
When it rains, it gets there to the classroom and teaching and learning is no more effective. So we are forced to close the children whenever it rains heavily.
This is the major challenge and fear of many who teach and learn in the State Experimental School. The pillars of a major school building eroding by itself, bit by bit. They say a stitch in time saves 9. Reporting for JoyNews, Erastus Asaredonko, Kumasi.
Well, we can now bring you an update on the private jet terminal dispute at the airport. A group of persons known as the Gadangwe elites say they are highly outraged by the actions of the Ghana Airports Company Limited to raise concerns on the private jet lounge established by McDan and Martis Arising. The elites see the single act as an attempt to once again gag another industrialist, Gadangwe, who has made it big in the private sector and aims at expanding his empire in the aviation industry. They are planning on a demonstration. We can now go onto the telephone lines now and speak to Ni Aite Ama, who joins us now. Good afternoon to you, sir. First of all, the airport company explains that there are issues concerning or regarding national security, a reason for which they are raising concerns about the operations of the Magdan private jet. You say this is an attempt to gag a Gadangwe. Why are you making these claims?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for giving me this chance to explain myself to you. First of all, the terminal was there for a long time, and Magdan didn't start operating the terminal on the 31st of January. Magdan started renovation works on the terminal. Magdan cannot stand like by himself and go there working as if the project is his own. I believe Magdan had contract with Ghana Airports Company Limited before commencing the renovation works at the terminal. All this while, when these things are ongoing, why won't Ghana Airports Company Limited come out and indicate they don't have anything to do with Magdan? But they waited till everything is finished on the day of inauguration before they brought the letter that Magdan shouldn't inaugurate the terminal. Does this make sense? And also, if there is nothing behind this particular thing, would they go ahead to issue a letter to stop Magdan's inauguration on the date of inauguration? Meanwhile, on the 25th of January, the same Mr. Yakwakwa gave a letter to Frontline Health Services to instruct them to commence with COVID tests at Magdan Terminal 1. If they had breached securities and all those things they are talking about, will he issue the letter?
I guess their concern is not about the terminal, the operation of the terminal. After all, that portion has been leased to Magdan himself. You are claiming that this is a direct attack on Magdan, but the airport company says there are concerns about safety. Are you not mindful of that concern?
Concerns about what?
Safety and national security. Safety and national security. And this all borders on the private jet operations, not necessarily the terminal. They're talking about safety of issues relating to
Ghana Airport has to do with there are processes that they follow. So all this while, Ghana Airport Company Limited didn't know that it poses a national security threat to them. All this while, when they are doing their surveillance and other stuff, they didn't know that what Maxam is doing as a national security threat. Those are the questions that we should ask. Because of no one will just wake up and do something just like that. But it follows the procedure. And if the processes are there, you follow it. And if like there are breaches, they stop you before you commit something. But why wait? Why wait till the luncheon before they will come up with this? So we think there is something fishy. There's something that they are not telling us. So they should answer those questions for us.
Right. So tell me about the demonstration that you're planning to embark on.
Yeah, we will embark on demonstration to display our pleasure to the government, because the government itself is trying to promote local companies. And if there is a local man, a Gadambi man has come up with this, the same people are trying to sabotage the person. If Madam had been a foreigner, would they do this thing to him?
All right, then. I'm grateful, Niama, for joining us. He's with the Gadangbe group, who are solidarizing behind the Macdan private jet operations. Let's bring you an update on the 70-year-old man who has been assaulted. We have some details on that coming up shortly, but don't forget as well that this man that we are talking about was assaulted in Damongo in the Savannah region. A soothsayer accused Mahamadou of making a child sick and also spiritually killing another person. The 70-year-old man is currently receiving treatment at the Damongo Catholic Hospital. This afternoon, we are getting disturbing updates from Damongo. Those who are actually attacking the man are back in the hospital demanding his release so they can, quote, finish him. That's what they are demanding for. So let's go on the lines now and speak to Thomas, who is one of the physician assistants there, for more updates on this. What really can you tell us about the grounds on which the residents are still asking for this man to, quote and unquote, finish him?
Hello?
Yes, Thomas, if you can hear me, I'm asking about the latest there. We understand that some residents are still asking, demanding that you release this man that we can see on the screens now, who's been accused of engaging in some witchcraft or wizardry, if you want to call it that way. Why are they demanding that the hospital releases him?
Well, I can't speak to why they are demanding that we release him, but what I was told this afternoon was that late last night, about 9 p.m., one gentleman walked in the emergency ward where the patient is currently giving treatment. Demanded the nurse to discharge him so he can take him home and finish him, like you said. But they told him they weren't responsible for the patient to be released to him. So they asked that the citizen should come and take the man away, and the citizen came and took him away. But we've not seen him today, we've not seen him yet. But that was what I was told happened last night.
All right. And do we know if there's enough protection for this man as we speak?
Well, what I know for a fact is that we have team at the hospital who are up to task, but I don't know of any external facility, but what we have within our local arrangement.
Thomas, I'm grateful. We'll get back to you shortly for some updates on all that's happening within the Damongo community. But today is the World Safer Internet Day. Now, here's what you need to know. Industry players are dedicating February 8th to dialoguing on ways to provide a safer and better internet where every user gets to use the internet responsibly and without getting their data leaked. Now, DAP, the Safer Internet Day, some agencies here in Ghana and around the world are dedicating this week to ensuring that they strategize on how to make the cyberspace safe, especially for children. Now, in 2021 alone, Cybersecurity Authority is telling us that they received about 18,000 reports of cases relating to online abuse, raising questions about safety online. Joining me now is the Executive Director for Child Online Africa, Awai Damamenya. Such a pleasure, Madam, to be hearing from you on this day of the celebration. First of all, what's the status in terms of safety for children, particularly in Ghana? You deal with Africa, but particularly in Ghana. What can you say about the status in terms of safety measures for children here in Ghana using the cyberspace?
Good afternoon and happy Safer Internet Day to you.
Thank you.
And your viewers. When we talk about safety in Ghana, online safety habits, I will look at it from the behavioral perspective. How much are we seeing content that we are not happy about in the space? Do we see a lot of young people now posting things that they are not supposed to post? Do we have a situation where they are just there and doing other things that they are not supposed to do? So clearly, those are the things, and the statistics you churned out from the Cybersecurity Authority will be the best fit for the country, because they are the center that receives the information or reports and complaints. The few we receive do not come to us, but go to the providers directly. So in essence, that's what I could say to that. But on a whole, there has been less reporting when it comes to Africa in general. We don't report incidents, and that is what providers or the platform owners are telling us. In one of the sessions we held online this morning, Facebook has reiterated that Africa is the least reporting continent that they have. And so they are trying their best to escalate information just so people can report appropriately. And it is also one of the reasons why we started what we call this Africa Safer Internet Day, because we thought that Safer Internet Day in itself, yes, it was started in Europe, and we don't want to just be imbibing content. We want to have homegrown solutions. We want to have solutions that are influenced by our cultural values. So, which is why we started what we call the Africa Safer Internet Day as Africans. And yes, we promote the same thing, but then in a contextualized manner.
These issues that you're talking about appear to be a bit far away, normally when the issue of internet safety comes on board. How are you breaking this down to the average parent who's watching us right now, or even a child who's watching right now? How much of a concern should it be for us, those of us who are online using social media or the internet?
Okay, so that's a good question. I don't think I will even talk about the concern alone. We put out what we call the digital assessment test this morning. We want parents to take the test and just know their engagement level, whether they are reckless engagers in the space, and let their children take it too. When you get the results, you know what to do. That is the simplest way to explain to you that, okay, you are engaging rightly or wrongly. Because we all don't have the same literacy level, there is no hard and fast conversation around saying that, okay, when you do this, it's right, when you do this, it's wrong. Someone might be engaging in the same thing, but has a way of protecting himself or herself. But again, if you have a problem with remembering your password and you are still using your phone number to connect to social media, then that one, it's a fundamental concern that you need to look at again and reform your ways of doing things, because, I mean, it's neither here nor there. The next moment you start talking about hacking.
Right.
So clearly, those are hygienic practices you should exhibit online, and taking a test will help you a lot.
Let's take on the figures. The Cybersecurity Authority is indicating to us that 18,000 odd reports as at 2021. I don't know what the breakdown is for children, but largely what has been that trend of cyber attacks online? In which form does it come, and how does it affect children especially?
Sometimes it could come in any form. Now that we were all compelled to go online during the pandemic, clearly some children who are using WhatsApp and Facebook are not supposed to be on now, but then they are on because they have the devices. Now, one thing is, if they don't report incidences, there's no way we could know the numbers. We only have to be looking at the situation online and then make that observation to say that, okay, here is the situation and all of that. So I am not in a position to call out the figures, but I wouldn't also want to say that it's on the increase. Once reporting is going on, then kudos. We have something that is collecting the figures and the statistics for us. Maybe by next week, we will be able to give you some definite numbers, because as part of the celebration this year, the whole of the 16 regions, they are undertaking a basic research, which we are calling a community scorecard, to see what the situation is on the ground for children below 12 years. So that is what we can tell you from a scientific point of view.
Your expertise deals with minors, and obviously the state must come through with some protection. What do you have to say about government policies and how we could reform it to increasingly protect children who are online?
I'm not sure. I would say that the policies, even though some of them are in black and white, they don't really go to influence the situation on the ground. So we have things sitting in the Children's Act, we have things sitting in the Cyber Security Act now at 1038.
Well, it appears that we've lost Awu Aidamamenya there, but it's still the Safer Internet Day celebration, and we'll keep our eyes on the activities that will be rolled out throughout the week. But Senior Presidential Advisor Yao Osafo-Maafo is calling for what he describes a code of conduct for religious groupings. He believes that such an act will help reduce the work on government, as religious leaders will be assisting government in their work. Now, he was speaking at a ceremony to honor the head pastor of the Royal House Chapel International, Sam Kumasi-Accra, with a U.S. President's Lifetime Achievement Award for his humanitarian acts. There's more in the following report by Hannah Odani.
For years, the Royal House Chapel, through its founder, Apostle General Sam Kumasi-Accra, have been involved in acts which assist vulnerable persons achieve their goals. Prisoners who come out have been helped to reintegrate in society through the church's compassion program.
I was really much of a gangster. I ended up in Sawan prison with a sentence of 11 years on my head. I was in the library just doing some studies, and I heard a voice. The voice was very different from all the other men of God who had come there. You could tell that this guy meant business to bring some people out of prison.
Persons who were either dropouts or had no money to get educated were helped to get back to school.
I just heard that there is a scholarship foundation in the church. So I walked up to Mama Rita one day and then just spoke to her about it. So that very year, Daddy and Mommy, out of their pockets, sponsored my fees to St. Augustine's College.
These acts by the church in Ghana have been replicated in other countries, including the USA and Jamaica. This was why Apostle General was selected for the U.S. President's Life Achievement Award.
You are helping discover and deliver solutions to the challenges we face. Solutions that we need now more than ever.
Receiving the award, Apostle Sam Kumasi-Accra, who pledged to continue helping people, also called on government to cut down expenditure in the public sector.
If our politicians will place at their heart the first and foremost the desire to see this nation move forward, that all of us as citizens of this nation will have a equitable share of the national cake. Show the example by cutting national expenditure. They must punish themselves a little bit. And when we see that expenditure is being cut down, if they call upon us to pay taxes, whatever they ask us to pay, we shall pay with gladness and willingness, because we all know that we all suffer to gain.
Senior Minister Yao Osafo-Maafo, who was the special guest of honor, tasked Christians to rise up to that role of aiding government in its work.
We need to have what I call
self-discipline, self-examination, so that we examine among ourselves. We have a code of conduct in Christendom that will perhaps reduce the work of government. Because if people are straightened, stealing will go down. If people are straightened, many of the bad social things we see and hear will be eliminated. And I think we need spiritual leaders like Most Reverend Kumasi-Accra to do self-purging among the Christendom, to take a necessary leadership role in the Christendom, so that we correct a lot of the ills of the land.
Also at the ceremony was the Greater Accra Regional Minister Henry Korte, who asked for support in the ministry's campaign dubbed Operation Clean Your Frontage.
I want to humbly plead with the Most Reverend that we have embarked on what I call Operation Clean Your Frontage. And I want to hand over this area and the Kaneshi area to the Most Reverend. We want to make him one of our ambassadors to Operation Clean Your Frontage. Perhaps, maybe from today, he could send a communique to all his branches around Greater Accra to ensure that they help with the awareness creation, sensitization, and for that matter, helping people to keep their environment clean.
Reverend Kumasi-Accra pledged his support for the campaign and also prayed for all government officials.
Give him wisdom and give him favor, that the president will take his counsel in the name of Jesus.
For JoyNews, I am Hannah Odami.
Well, congratulations going out to Reverend Sam Kumasi-Accra and the Royal House Chapel International. Up next is sports with a bit of a breaking news for you. Stay with us here on The Pulse. Well, many thanks to the sports team, but that's all time will allow us today on The Pulse. My name is Blessed Suga. Don't forget that we have the update of all of our running stories for you on myjoyonline.com. That's where you need to be to get the update on all of the stories that we are bringing to you. But that's all for The Pulse. Don't forget that next is Let's Talk Showbiz.